Back from a long hiatus of episodes for How to Meet Your Neighbor. Today I am joined by none other than Randol White, SamTrans's public information officer. Randol, do you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah,
just generally.
Well, I'm a transit geek, first and foremost. I love it. Max and I actually were neighbors at one point, so when he first asked me to do the podcast, it really was how to get to know your neighbor. Since then, I've moved to San Francisco, but I was a journalist for more than 25 years, so I'm giving away some of my age secrets now, but I always told my colleagues, I'm never going to leave being a journalist unless a role comes up that I feel so passionate about that I can use my skills that I learned over the years as a journalist for good. And when the position came up at the San Mateo County Transit District to do just that, I had to jump in.
So I hope it didn't turn off. No, it didn't. Okay. So just to explain to our audience why I am interviewing a bus agency employee who works in public information about how to meet your neighbor. Riding the bus is an incredible way to meet your neighbors. Buses are simply an extension of the public space around your neighborhood. And I personally have met my neighbors riding the bus. And I think talking with a public information officer from a bus agency is a really incredible way to learn about who uses the bus in your community, why you should use the bus, and maybe some of the benefits you might not be thinking about when it comes to funding the bus, or why the bus should be faster in your community, even if you yourself never even ride the bus. So that's a lot to swallow, and it's not necessarily specific to maybe what you think about when it comes to meeting your neighbor, but for people who are wanting to know about the scope of SamTrans's customers and the level of service that SamTrans offers to the community. It's a countywide transit agency, but can you throw out some ballpark numbers? I won't hold you to them.
Yeah, no, of course. So SamTrans really does everything we can to serve the entire community, absolutely everybody. And we just finished a years-long project called Reimagine SamTrans that, we were able to rethink everything during the pandemic as travel patterns shifted pretty significantly. And so we wanted to look at what we had on the ground, the different bus routes and those sorts of things, and say, what's working, what's not working. Let's hear from the public, ask them what they want, where they think there should be more service, less service, all that sort of thing. And we have done a really good job of implementing it, and our ridership numbers are now at pre-pandemic levels and continue to rise as I see the numbers come in on a monthly basis, which makes us happy. But for SamTrans, a huge portion of our ridership is the population of San Mateo County that has the least means. And that's not the case in every county, but in San Mateo County, that's really the case. People who have the means to own a car and drive, unfortunately, do. People who don't rely on SamTrans. And we're there for them as often as we can be. And we've added, within the last couple of years, some services that dig down even deeper into those communities, including in Half Moon Bay and in East Palo Alto, where fixed route service, like a fixed route would be, in the ground bus stops. You go wait at a bus stop and the bus comes. That's fixed route, like the ECR, our number one route. But what Ride Plus does is it's a van. It's similar to like a Lyft or an Uber type of situation, but it's shared ride. And through an app or through the phone, you call up and say, hey, I'm at this location in East Palo Alto, and I need to go to this location. Or you just, put those coordinates in on your phone, and a van comes and picks you up and drops you off for the cost of a bus ride. And if one of your stops happens to be at a fixed route location, you can then transfer for free to that bus. So let's say you live in Half Moon Bay and you need to get to San Mateo. But the bus stop in Half Moon Bay is really far from your house. So that's that first mile, last mile situation that can really complicate people using transit. With Ride Plus, you call Ride Plus to pick you up at your house. You get in the van, it drops you off at the 294 bus stop, and you come up and over the hill, all for the cost of one bus ride. You know, it's really, the numbers are picking up a lot. It's been a challenge to explain what Ride Plus is to people, how it benefits them, and that it's not a scam, because it seems, you know, when things seem too good to be true, they're probably too good to be true. In the case of Ride Plus, it is true, and it's really one of the best services we offer to those communities that, you know, once again, don't necessarily have the means to get around. But even if you have the means to get around, why wouldn't you just have a van come pick you up? You know, and the more people that use it, the better value it is for the taxpayers, because you're putting more rides into one trip, which just stretches the dollar further.
So we are at a bus stop at the moment along a fixed route, not on demand. And thanks to Reimagine SamTrans, the service changes of a couple of years ago, the bus runs every 15 minutes at this bus stop, 7 days a week, where pre-revised service schedule, it only ran 15-minute frequencies 5 days a week. So we're going to wait for the bus to arrive, and we'll board it, and we'll actually ride the bus. We'll converse a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about the impacts of a bus agency in your community and how it affects the landscape of your community socially, financially, equitably, but we'll get there. Join us on the ride. Well, we've boarded. We're on the ECR route. Do you mind sharing a little bit about this route being the most popular, the most frequent? I think it's something like a third of all fixed route rides in SamTrans's service offering.
It's a huge chunk of our ridership. I mean, it really does carry the vast number of people that take SamTrans. At some point, you need to go up and down El Camino Real, you know, because it is the lifeline for the county. And one really exciting portion of the Grand Boulevard Initiative, which is this new effort, rebirthed effort, really, to make El Camino Real a street for everyone, is the transit component of that. And what's great, Max, is that SamTrans is actually leading the effort for the Grand Boulevard Initiative. So you know that the transit aspect of it's going to be baked into this plan. And what we really want is for routes like the ECR to be able to move faster, be able to get there on time. You know, if you're expecting a bus in 15 minutes, it shows up in 15 minutes, which I think today's ours showed up in about 15, right?
Yeah.
And so because it carries so many people and it is the backbone of the county, we need to make it so that transit can go up and down it as smoothly as possible.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've learned about public transit as a frequent rider these days is how different types of transit come with different levels of reliability. Trains tend to be given preferential right-of-way.
Right.
Like the train never needs to stop for crossings. It's quite literally the opposite, that other traffic needs to wait for trains. Less true of light rail, but even less true of buses.
That's for sure.
And so one of the hardest things to do when it comes to improving bus service, as I understand it, is making the bus higher priority on our roadways. And I understand that's part of what the Grand Boulevard Initiative, one of the goals that is stated as far as improving what this state highway provides for residents is faster speeds when you do ride the bus. And I know there's all kinds of solutions in the toolbox to be able to increase the speed, the average speed of the bus along this route, or any route really. Can you share a little bit for folks who are curious, in what ways are buses handicapped as far as competing against the single occupancy car in driving time?
Well, we have to pull over all the time. And that really does, when you think about, even if it's just 15 seconds or 20 seconds, that adds up over the course of a really long stretch like El Camino Real. And so that is definitely a handicap. It slows the bus down, and as it's pulled over, other cars are passing it, then it's got to get back into traffic, and if traffic is heavy, that can be a difficult process as well. One of the hurdles to get over with this Grand Boulevard initiative is the fact that there are so many municipalities up and down ECR, plus Caltrans, plus the county, all have visions for what these things should be. And so it really is SamTrans' job to get everybody on the same page. What visions do we all have that are in line? And, not everywhere does the bus slow down. So there are sticky points up and down the peninsula. And those are areas where we might see some sort of infrastructure built so that the bus can go faster through those areas. Some areas, maybe don't need much work. So you won't see a consistent roadway all the way from Daly City to Palo Alto because it's not needed that entire stretch, at least not immediately. Like if I could wave a magic wand, I would put a dedicated bus lane the entire route, like you would see if you've been to Van Ness, how they redid that roadway in the city. But that's a huge undertaking. Everyone would have to agree. It's really expensive. And that some areas the space really isn't there for it either. So that's just not going to happen probably in my lifetime. But what we can do is fix the areas where the bus slows down the most right now. And I think that's doable within a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about the number of municipalities, the number of cities and jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
On this bus ride alone, we are going to be riding through San Carlos, Belmont, San Mateo, Burlingame, and Millbrae.
Right. 5
municipalities over the course of a maybe 20, 25-minute bus ride. So that just underlies how difficult it is. But one of the things you mentioned earlier about service changes, I wanted to come back to is you mentioned the number of stops. And part of what Reimagine SamTrans, the revision of services, did was actually remove some stops. So stop removal and strategic stop placement has a huge impact on how often the bus stops and therefore its average speed. Obviously, if you look at each of these municipalities, they want it to stop in their city a bunch, and they want it to not stop a lot in other neighboring cities.
Right.
Is this something that's sort of unique to SamTrans as far as there being so many municipalities, or in maybe single county or single jurisdiction transit agencies, is this less of an issue?
It's a really good question, and I'm not sure. I mean, certainly, like San Francisco has one municipality that they mostly deal with. It's a large city, but then they do venture into Daly City, so they venture into San Mateo County, and I think that's it as far as I'm aware. So definitely here in the Bay Area, VTA is mainly Santa Clara County, but differing cities. So, I'm not sure. I haven't really studied that, but it is a challenge for us, and where the stops go and why they go where they go is something that we are seriously looking into, and we've gotten a lot of public feedback. Lots of stakeholders have gotten into it because we're in the middle of our bus stop improvement plan. And this is a huge undertaking. Just moving one bus stop is a pretty big effort. You have to alert people and let them know that it's moving. It's expensive because you've got to pull up this infrastructure and then put it in another place. Plus, we want to improve our infrastructure. So we did, over the summer, have a bus stop bench survey. Did you take the survey?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite?
Oh man, it's been a while.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember which one I picked too. But we want to make sure, if we're going to go to this expense of putting in a lot of new stops, a lot of new infrastructure so that people can be shaded or protected from the wind. We have a lot of wind here on the peninsula in different locations.
And feel safe, and
Feel
also
safe.
pick up or have trash bins and lighting.
Lighting.
It's drainage so you don't get splashed.
Right.
Pads on the roadway so that the bus doesn't tear up the road when it comes to stops.
And there, I was going to say, don't quote me on this, but I'm being quoted digitally. I think there are some rules as to like how close our stops need to be together, but I'm not 100% sure. So maybe I shouldn't go down that route, but no pun intended. But there's a lot of thought that goes into it. There wasn't always a lot of thought that went into it, so part of the job that we need to do is sort of go back and correct some things that weren't maybe done right decades ago and say, this stop really isn't serving anyone here, so it should be moved, or this whole area doesn't get served very well, and why? So let's fix that and make sure that everyone is served as they should be.
Can you speak to our audience members who maybe don't ride the bus, or if you're trying to psychically imagine their reasoning for not riding the bus? Obviously, there's situations where they're not near a bus stop.
Right.
But for folks who are within a bus range, walking distance of a bus stop, what are some of the key objections that you hear about from surveys of county residents in the service area as to why they don't ride the bus?
Well, from just personal experience, I have friends and family members who put a stigma on riding the bus that is not warranted at all. And they see it as that it doesn't carry the same status symbol as getting in your nice new car that you had washed, and you roll into wherever you're going and get out of the car like all the cameras are on you or something. I just look at it through a completely different lens, and I have ever since I was a kid. My father commuted from Novato up in the North Bay to his job in San Francisco on Golden Gate Transit. But on days where he had to drive in for some reason, when he came home, he was just like a different man, and not in a good way. Like, he was not happy sitting in that bumper to bumper 101 traffic through Marin. And on the days that he came home on the bus, he had taken a nap on the way home. He was refreshed. He was in a great mood. Like, let's go out and play. Let's go take a bike ride. And so I had this positive vision of the bus ever since I was a little kid. But I know that not everybody grows up with that. And if you watch movies, if you watch television shows, and a lot of the stuff that Hollywood puts out puts bike riding or taking the bus in a negative light. The loser has to take the bus. The loser is always on public transit. The loser, as the storyline defines the loser. And they never showed like the super successful person getting on the bus or the super successful person hopping on their bike, which is so wrong and just not the way that I see things. So my entire life, I have chosen where I live based on what my commute is going to be, and before I'll like sign a lease or buy a home, it has to be within a reasonable distance for me to either walk, bike, or some combination of transit and a other multimodal situation. And I think if people thought more in those terms and saw it as this incredible resource that by the way, like helps you build up your bank account. People are throwing so much money into their cars, insurance, gasoline, just the washing of it, the annual
DMV fee.
the DMV fees. Yeah, you can see I don't deal with cars very often. All those things, and then of course the lease agreement or the not mortgage. What do you call it when you're the bank loan, like the loan payments, the car loan payments.
Yeah. Man, we are not the right people to be discussing car ownership. Yeah.
We're really not. But you start adding all those things together, and your per trip cost in that car is pretty astronomical. When you cut that out and you start relying on public transit instead, you will see your savings account grow. And so for me, I just think the sign of a successful person is a person who's taking transit, is making those really smart financial moves to not dump everything into their car. And I'm happy to say that there is not a point at which in my professional life that the car has been my main source to get to work. Have I taken a car to work? Yes, absolutely. But I have done everything in my power to make that not the number one mode.
For folks who've never rode SamTrans before, can you, I know this is pretty basic information, but I think one hurdle for people is not understanding what the sequence of payment is like when you're boarding the bus, and like what the protocol is. What do you do? How do you literally ride the bus? How do you explain that to someone who's never done it before?
Well, this is a really good time to talk about it, Max, because next generation Clipper has just been rolled out. I almost called it Clipper 2.0 because that was sort of the shorthand for it before we knew what it was going to be called. But next generation Clipper, we've had one generation of Clipper. So when Clipper came out in the Bay Area, we've been using the same software this entire time. And for a tech-heavy area of the country, this software was really far behind. But it's not now. And as of December 10th, Clipper 2.0 or again, next generation Clipper, is now rolling out to a lot of people's accounts. And it is instantly available to you if you just want to use a Visa or MasterCard or some sort of a credit card. You just walk up, tap it onto the system. If you continually use the same card, like just if you have more than one credit card, like this is going to be my transit card. And the reason why you want to keep it to the one card is there are additional benefits you will get by using that same card. So if you get on SamTrans, tap on, you don't have to think about how much it costs or anything, it just ding happens. Then when you get off SamTrans, say you're going to transfer to Caltrain, you use the same card and tap on for Caltrain, you instantly get, I think it's $2.85 credit for whatever the transit agency is you're transferring to. If you're transferring to Muni or BART or VTA, all of which SamTrans has connection points with, you will get that bonus. Or if you're coming the other way, if you're on Muni and you get off in Daly City and transfer to SamTrans, your SamTrans ride is essentially free. So using Clipper is the absolute smartest way to use our service. It's the least expensive way to use our service, and you can just keep track of everything. Also, any sort of discounted services are all built into the Clipper card. So if you get a discount based on your age, or if you're a student, or if you have a disability, all of that's built right into your Clipper account. And we have people available through our customer service line who can walk you through all of these things. We even have very specialized ones for seniors where they'll even come meet you at a bus and like get on the bus with you and show you how to do it.
What are, maybe getting personal, what are your personal favorite destinations riding SamTrans? I realize you're no longer living in the county anymore, so maybe not riding it as frequently, but when you were living here, what would you most often use What was the route you used most often, and what were the destinations you rode to?
I still take SamTrans at least, I would say, once a month. And when I lived here, it was a lot of the ECR because I lived in Burlingame, and I would take it if Caltrain was running. When I was living in Burlingame, Caltrain was in the midst of switching over to their electric trains, so there were some delays and times that the service was completely down, and ECR was my go-to because it would get me to work in San Carlos. I also love the 294 to head over the hill to Half Moon Bay. I don't know why anyone would go there any other way, especially like around pumpkin season and those sorts of things, because if there's traffic, it's no big deal. You've got these huge picture windows that you look out, and that the view between where we are right now on this side of the peninsula over to the coast side is so beautiful. And let us do the driving for you so you can pay attention to the view and enjoy it. Have lunch in Half Moon Bay, and then hop back on and go the other direction. All for pennies, much less than you would pay to fill up your gas tank to do that same thing. Another one of my absolute favorites, and I think this is a definite hack if you use SFO at all, is the 292. The 292 will take you from about where we are right now. Are we near Hillsdale?
Yeah, we passed it.
We just passed Hillsdale. So it will take you from Hillsdale in San Mateo to the airport, and then continues on past the airport to downtown San Francisco and Salesforce, across the street from Salesforce Tower. That's where I catch it. Anytime I'm flying out of San Francisco, I catch the 292, and it drops you off at the gates. Well, not at your gate, but right, at the terminal. And I mean, that'd be pretty impressive if we dropped you off at the gate.
At your airplane, yeah.
Yeah, but it drops you off at I think it's 3 different locations within the airport, and it's less expensive than the other services. I'm not knocking the other services; those are great ways to get there, also. But the 292 is, I love that ride. I take it often. Sometimes I take the, is it the EPX or the FCX? I think it's...
EPX goes to SFO.
That's right, the EPX, yeah. So if the timing is right, because it's a commuter route, so it only is running in the morning and the evenings during the weekdays. If the timing is right for my flight, I can catch the EPX, and it doesn't stop anywhere until it gets to the airport, and that's like an express for $2.05.
What would you say SamTrans riders should be most excited about and anticipating in the, I'd say, 5 to 10 year time frame? You mentioned the bus stop improvement plan. You mentioned some of the Grand Boulevard Initiative proposals. These might be unknown when they'll land, but can you talk through some of the things riders should be excited about changing? Obviously, you mentioned Clipper 2.0 and getting discounted transfers to other transit agencies, but there's a lot going on currently that people should be excited about. But on a 5 to 10 year time frame, what should people be excited about? And also, what should riders be advocates for? If you want to see your bus service improve, what are some things that really, bus boosters who want to see SamTrans succeed, we could advocate for things, and what would you say would be the most impactful things to advocate for?
I'll start with that just because I have a really good example sitting right next to me as to what you could do, and that is join our citizen advisory committees. A lot of times we have open seats that need to be filled. I believe there's some open seats right now on the SamTrans Citizens Advisory Committee. Also, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority has a similar sort of I think it's also called a CAC. And that committee helps decide, or at least gives input into where the transportation dollars should be spent in the county. And those transportation dollars often help services like SamTrans. So either of those sorts of situations, or just contact us and let us know. Call our customer service and say, hey, I have this idea, and sometimes that's all it takes, right? Some of the best inventions in world history just came with an idea, and so you might think, oh, everybody's thinking this. There's no reason for me to pass it along. That's not always the case, So share your ideas with us, positive, negative, whatever you have. Let us know so that at least if it's brought to our attention, we can address it, or even just consider it, because that's really important. In terms of things to get excited about, Max, I think right now you and I are sitting on a diesel bus, which was the heavy lifter for our fleet for many, many years. In the last few years, we have been adding battery electric buses and hydrogen fuel cell electric buses. In the industry, we call them BEBs for battery electric bus, or FCEBs for the hydrogen fuel cell electric buses. And we are really moving quickly toward an entirely zero emission fleet, which we hope to have completed in the early 2030s. So you said the 10-year plan, that would put us into the mid-2030s. We should be entirely zero emission by then, and that's good for everybody. It's good for the people that live in San Mateo County because there's less diesel emission, bad gases.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of.
I mean, this is a real issue for Caltrain and their electrification. Is that air quality at the train stations was really bad before electrification, and then after electrification, air quality got much better.
Yeah.
And so for riders yourselves, even if you don't even believe in climate change, for your personal physical health,
you don't want to be
the
breathing.
exhaust is not good for you.
No, it really isn't. And we've mentioned multiple times that the ECR is our busiest route by far. And along the ECR is the densest population throughout San Mateo County. So a lot of people are living very close to this corridor where a lot of diesel buses, are doing their thing. So as we shift those over and make them zero emission, that is something that benefits everybody, and they're nice and quiet. It really is something, as a bus rider myself, that you should be looking forward to in the coming years.
This is sort of out of my wheelhouse, and I don't know how familiar you are with this topic, so we can move on if it's not one that we really know well. But I know there's a big topic around urban planning where, as your community changes, maybe a tall building gets built, office, residential, a city or whoever's jurisdiction it is will propose a transportation demand management program, or a TDM program. And this basically tries to dictate how the neighborhood will accommodate these new residents, these new office workers, so that not everybody is driving, because if everybody drives, congestion is obviously unsustainable. So bus agencies play a key role in alleviating congestion, and that's one reason you should support the bus even if you never ride it. But is SamTrans as an agency ever involved in these transportation demand management plans? And does that affect where the bus route, the fixed route stops are? Is this a topic that you're familiar with?
I'm actually not familiar enough to speak with any sort of authority on it, that's for sure. That would be more people in our planning department, and we have some really amazing people in our planning department that maybe one day will take the bus with you. Jonathan and Kate are two people that I work with. They're fantastic. I believe they would be able to speak to that. Also, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, people that work there, I know deal with that transportation demand management stuff. And so this would be one of those questions that I might get in an email, and then I quickly forward it to them, and they tell me the information that I get back as though I'm the know-it-all, but I'm not. And so, I wish I could answer that, but I can't.
I know this is like a jurisdiction thing where the cities come up with these transportation demand management plans, and then it's unclear exactly how all parties involved come together to solve the problem of congestion and land use. And,
one thing that I can say on that is a lot of times, I even say things like this sometimes, but people will say, well, why doesn't SamTrans just ... whatever it might be. You might have something in your head right now that you're thinking, yeah, why doesn't SamTrans just... And I wish it was that simple, but you said something really important there. There's all types of jurisdictions, and not every city has the same rules. Not every municipality plays the same game. And then you have this through line through San Mateo County, which is the ECR, which is actually operated by Caltrans, it's not operated by any of the cities, even though, the cities have situations, their rules pertain to the thoroughfare, but the highway itself, it is a highway. It was actually California's very first highway.
For audience who are not local to the Bay Area, ECR stands for El Camino Real, the Royal Highway. Spanish colonists who came here named this what was traditionally a Native American footpath, the Royal Highway. And we actually just passed by a few hundred yards to our left the site of the Anza expedition, the Spanish colonists who first discovered the Bay Area. So this is super historical roadway. It's also basically the flattest one along the peninsula, and outside of the Caltrain tracks.
Right.
But yeah, I wanted to give our audience members who aren't local to the Bay Area familiarity with El Camino Real.
Yeah, I swore I wouldn't do it when I started working for the district, but when I first got there, I heard everyone speaking in these acronyms or initialisms, and I'm just like, speak in English, and then now I find myself doing it, so.
No, all good.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, we are about 2/3 of our way of our journey. We're on our way to Millbrae. We're covering maybe 1/3 of the entire El Camino Real fixed route. Starts south in Palo Alto, ends north at Daly City BART Station. We're going to be ending our ride probably in 10 minutes or so at Millbrae. Can you tell our audience a little bit about Millbrae and where it sits on the route, and the next 5 to 10 years for Millbrae as a transit center of the county?
Yeah, so Millbrae is in North County, San Mateo County. And I should quickly mention, we always mention San Mateo County. SamTrans actually does go into Santa Clara County to the Palo Alto Transit Center, which is also a Caltrain stop. And we do go up into San Francisco, and we serve several locations up in there, including the Salesforce Transit Center and Mission Street, which is a main thoroughfare in the city. And so we do venture outside the county, but we're mostly within San Mateo County. So Millbrae has a stop for both BART and Caltrain, and SamTrans goes there as well. So the three major transit services agencies serving San Mateo County all meet right there at the Millbrae Transit Center, and it is where the San Mateo County Transit District has decided to move their offices. We're currently based in San Carlos, and we've been there for a long time, but the building that we're in is really not in the best shape. People get stuck in the elevators. It's not laid out to be an efficient office space at all. We share it with Caltrain because SamTrans is the managing agency for Caltrain, and we've had that agreement in place for a pretty long time. We have a lot of shared services. I fall under shared services, the communications department. So sometimes I'm the PIO for Caltrain, sometimes I'm the PIO for SamTrans, and sometimes for the Transportation Authority. But it's all moving to Millbrae, and Caltrain is coming with us to that same location. And it'll just be so convenient to have everything right at this one location where it's not just convenient for us all to be in this new building, but for us all to be at a transit hub served by our own agencies, you know? And so that's really exciting to see that moving forward. And we're starting to get density around this transit hub, which is the goal when you put in a major transit hub, is to get people living near there so that they can use it. And you don't have that first mile, last mile issue anymore, because people just walk from their home straight to the hub.
I know this is another jurisdiction issue, but what are some ways that SamTrans works with cities who control the roadways, the intersections, effectively the walkability type of access to bus stops? What are some ways that you've seen cities improve the viability of walking to bus stops and that last mile problem? Or how much of it is in SamTrans's hands versus striving to influence partners like cities, or on El Camino Real, the state DOT?
Very little of it is actually in SamTrans' hands. It's almost entirely within the hands of the city. The TA, we call it the Transportation Authority, does work with the cities on these matters, and in recent years is taking on more of an advisory role for some of these large transit projects. Initially, the TA was founded to help disperse tax money in the counties through a couple of measures A and W, to make sure that those tax dollars went to the right transportation projects. And it really was just its only function was to do that. But in recent years, it's taken on this role to help counties plan and come up with strategies that work better, so that, like you were saying, so that you don't just have this bus stop that's inaccessible. You know, you want to make it accessible to bikes, to pedestrians, multimodal ways to get to and from there, because when people get off the bus, they need to get to where they're going from there.
So we're riding along what I believe is maybe the most bumpy stretch of El Camino Real. Apologies, viewers, if you're getting car sick. But this is also the stretch that's going to be, there's actually just a ribbon cutting
just this week, right?
This week to begin rehabilitation of this section of that state highway. And a lot of factors go in. What makes this stretch so bumpy is, besides the level of maintenance, is also the number of tree roots that disrupt the surface of the roadway. And obviously, there's lots of reasons you'd want to retain the trees, but it's at this expense of cost and service levels, like you cannot drive faster than a certain amount. This is a jurisdictional headache, and because Caltrans is the state agency that is responsible for maintaining this, what's kind of the working relationship between a regional transit agency like SamTrans and the state Department of Transportation? The reason I'm asking all these nosy questions is because
you're curious, right?
I'm curious, and I'm also wanting to educate our viewers a little bit about who to reach out to. Like, it doesn't make sense to reach out to an agency that doesn't have the power to change the thing that you care about. So can you spell out for our viewers a little bit about how El Camino Real, for example, what goes into changes that happen to it in the immediate, medium, long term?
Well, this one stretch that you just mentioned is a huge undertaking. It's incredibly expensive, and it's a repaving effort. They're also going to be, as I understand it, undergrounding a lot of the phone and power lines. making more space for sidewalks and for people to get up and down. I used to live along this very stretch, and I can tell you it was not easy to even, in some cases, walk, but definitely biking is a challenge along this stretch of ECR. For Caltrans, I cannot speak for them, but I did talk to recently for a podcast that I host called Wheel Talk. We just had a whole episode on El Camino Real, and our guest from Caltrans was saying that Caltrans has, in recent years, shifted their focus on large transportation projects to make them more multimodal and with a greater emphasis on pedestrians and bicycles than they ever have in the past. And I think that is, and also transit. And that's great when it comes to working with agencies like SamTrans. So we have entire groups within our communications team. Their whole role is to stay connected, communicating with the cities, with Caltrans, with all of the different stakeholders in these different projects to make sure that SamTrans not only has a say, but also knows what's going on and can help, feed them any information they might need to just make it a better project.
I really appreciate. I should direct our audience members to check out Wheel Talk. You should check it out on podcast apps. That's where I've listened to it. I think there's a website as well. I'll link this in the show notes. I do want to call out one of the reasons that an agency like Caltrans would care about this subject beyond just making buses faster. This is actually the most dangerous roadway in the county as measured by traffic fatalities for all parties, whether you're walking, biking, driving. We're about to pass a stretch of medical care providers, and my wife and I ride this exact bus to go visit the medical care providers because this is truthfully the safest way to travel along the El Camino Real corridor. And I think that immediate feedback I've got about ways SamTrans could, market ridership on this route is this is a known dangerous route. And if you want to travel on this corridor, the safest is to ride the bus.
Yeah. Seriously.
I think that's a lot of what's driving Caltrans's interest in changing how this roadway looks like in its status quo. Any comments about the aspects of safety that people might have curiosity about when it comes to SamTrans and things that the agency is doing to, I guess, influence people's misperceptions about safety and riding a bus?
Yeah, because when something bad happens on a bus or really any form of transit, because it's a public means of getting around, it tends to make the news. And so disproportionately, in my opinion, you see negative news stories about something that may have happened on a bus or a train, light rail, whatever it might be, BART. Whereas bad things are happening all the time on the freeways or on, surface streets with car crashes and fatalities and those sorts of things. But they don't necessarily make the news unless they're causing a major backup. And so because of that, you might have a misperception that your transit agency is not a safe way to get around, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Taking the bus or the train is one of the absolute safest means of transportation. And like you were saying, this is a very dangerous road, but not when you're on the bus. And so at least since I've been with the agency, there has not been a single fatality or injury that I know of on ECR, El Camino Real, on one of our buses. But I would venture to say that's not true if you were to, look at people who were in a single occupancy vehicle.
So Randall and I, we've made it to Millbrae Transit Center. We've got a bus depot with a lot of bus stops. We've got the Caltrain platform just behind us. Yeah. Both of us are going to be taking it. Randol north, me south. And then, of course, BART right beyond that takes you a lot of places.
And if you look through there, you can see some glass and stuff. That's the new headquarters for SamTrans.
Yeah, so you can see the taller buildings just across the tracks and lots of transit-oriented development. Yeah. But to close this out, Randol, I was going to ask you, pitching people on riding the bus, what's your elevator pitch for why people should give bus riding a try?
I mean, in one word, it's just easier, but it's more affordable, it's easier, and, you know, when I'm not at work, I like to relax and I like to push off responsibilities, and if getting from point A to point B, I can push responsibilities into the lap of the train conductor or engineer or the bus driver or whoever it might be, so that I'm not the one dealing with the cars on the road, trying to find parking. And, to be completely honest, when my husband and I go out to dinner or meet up with friends, we like to share a bottle of wine or something. I'm not getting behind the wheel after even one glass of wine. And so I can have that glass of wine or maybe the second one if I'm hopping on SamTrans or Caltrain or Muni or any of the ferry system. We love taking the ferries over to the East Bay or up to Marin County, having lunch, all day long. And then coming back over and just not worried about the bridge tolls, the driving, the parking, whether someone's going to break into our car, depending on where we're going. So it's safer, it's easier, it's more cost effective, and we can have more fun when we get to our destination. It's a win-win-win. I don't know the negative side to that question.
Yeah, fair enough. And meet your neighbors.